turn right and action.
Europe. It's a big old place, isn't it? 747 million residents, 10.53 million square kilometres in scale. That's a lot, even for some of the world's most burly men to take on. And yet, the flesh mountains of North American wrestling constantly take time off from slapping meat in Florida, Montreal and Dallas to, well, do much the same in Munich, Paris and, quite recently, Glasgow. If you're going to body slam a 300-pound man, you may as well take in a bit of culture from the old countries while you're there. For you see, there is a huge market in the rest of the world for American wrestling. You can sell tickets, t-shirts, video on demand, and all sorts of paraphernalia to people who rarely use guns in schools and speak with funny languages. Just in the last 4 years, the Clash at the Castle, Money in the Bank, Backlash and Bash in Berlin events have been sellouts for the WWE, and even their chief competitors AEW have filled Wembley Stadium, and they are a fairly distant second in terms of revenue and viewership. Back when this title, WWF European Rampage, came out in the Earth year of 1992, the World Wrestling Federation was huge across the world thanks to the Fed's ruthless international expansion very shortly after they crushed their domestic territory wrestling opponents during the 80s. It was helped in no small amount in the UK by the arrival of Sky Television in 1990. Sky Television was a new way to view television using satellite technology, and it looked to upset the hegemony that the terrestrial channels had over here. They went big in their attempts too. They had channels that were purely recent Hollywood movies. They acquired the exclusive rights to the country's top-flight Premiership football, and they introduced Britain to The Simpsons and, crucially, the WWF. Oh boy did that work. All of a sudden, the people of the British Isles understood where that strange fellow who wore a banana under his nose came from. After seeing him threatening Gremlins in Gremlins 2, fighting Rocky in Rocky 4, and teaming up with B.A. Baracus in the A-Team. And the American wrestling took off after it offered something noticeably different to World of Sport wrestling. It was everything televised English wrestling wasn't. It was high octane, high impact, high camp, and going by the Ultimate Warrior, high on cocaine. A bit more interesting to the kids than a fat bloke hitting balding middle-aged men with his belly. The WWF infiltrated the UK in a big way, and by 1992 that dirty dog chairman, Vince McMahon, we shall not speak his name again, wasn't going to turn down the chance to make a lot of money. And so he held one of his 4 big pillared pay-per-views, and this one was SummerSlam 1992. It did all right. Ocean had already taken note of this boom period in American wrestling and had released a game on the micros the previous year, the Twilight-coded WWF WrestleMania. I did a review of that back in the Spectrum's based on TV show days, and well, I wasn't that fond of the game at all. I shall leave a thumbnail for you to view that at the end of the video, just in case you wanted to sate your thirst for reviews of ZX Spectrum WWF wrestling games, because I'm not covering it here because it didn't appear on Uncle Clive's little machine. It didn't draw out a number for this particular Royal Rumble. Nuh-uh. The lucky recipients of an audience with its sequel were the owners of the Amiga, the Atari ST, the PC and the Commodore 64. WWF European Rampage was developed by Arc Developments, who, among other licensed games, were responsible for the Sega versions of the football cartoon adaptation, The Hurricanes, which I covered in 2022. Look, there it is, on the screen now. As you've unquestionably been able to tell from the name, the decidedly country-centric arenas, not to mention the long filibuster I did at the beginning of this video, the stars of lycra-clad grunt and groan have made their way to this here continent. Well, hello there, muscle-bound chums from the States. Come throw yourselves about in our Brankfurst and our fish and chips. And just like the real WWF, there's no chance of the WWF Championship changing hands away from US shores, as you'll be a tag team trying to take the straps from the formidable force that is the Legion of Doom. Oh, that's just like WrestleFest, that really good wrestling game, isn't it? No, this game is not like WrestleFest. Sad to say. So yes, you'll be forming your team from the biggest names in the 80s wrestling. You can pick from Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior, and Bret the Hitman Hart. So, not a European among them. Brilliant. They'll be taking on the actual tag team division, who are probably quite aggrieved that these big boys from the singles division are coming down to steal their spotlight away. Your opponents will be the dentally challenged Nasty Boys, the salad-phobic Natural Disasters, and the most Tory of tag teams, Money Inc., who you must battle once in each of the 3 countries before, disappointingly, not actually having the big match in Europe at all, the Bastards. No, they instead go home to have their big important match in the States. Just give us the tag team championships, you cowards. Yes, you'll be wrestling, you see, at Madison Square Garden. And before we go any further, we should probably discuss that the rather strange choices that are on display due to the limitations of the Commodore 64 hardware. You see, in this version, you don't have a tag team at all. You instead get to take on the challenge alone with one-on-one battles. Now, this should give us the opportunity to take on the cream of the crop, or cream of the crop, oh yeah, as Macho Man Randy Savage would say, in opponents, you know, like Ric Flair, the Mountie, Mr. Perfect, or Haku. No, instead you fight a member of the tag teams. Just one, and they don't swap over when you change countries either. It'll always be the same members of those tag teams. And for the most part, they've picked the wrong one. You can't really get the wrong Nasty Boy or the wrong Legion of Doom wrestler, as they've always sort of been tag teams in the WWF era. But choosing Typhoon and IRS over DiBiase and Earthquake? These guys were top tier wrestlers for much of their runs. Come on, guys. Show you know nothing about Wrestling Ocean without saying you know nothing about wrestling. It is a big boo-boo. On the 16 bits, the presentation is on the whole very good. The Legion of Doom are standing there looking like dads at a Mad Max costume party with an impressive rendition of their theme at the start. In fact, all of the wrestlers' themes are present and indeed correct. Each match is introduced by presenter Sean Mooney. Looks very smart in his logo jacket, doesn't he? Then the game starts and, well, it doesn't so much fall off of a Titantron as take a swanton off of it, missing its opponent and ending up in the nearest medical facility. You can't say hospital on WWE television for some reason. The graphics are poor representations of their real-life counterparts. Everyone is the same height. The sprites are rough, just about recognisable by their costumes maybe. The animation is lazily done, especially when your pugilist performs a throw-based move. Look at this. The running animation is both sluggish and indeed camp. At least the Natural Disasters are pleasingly plump, which is more than could be said for their representation in the Super WrestleMania game on the Super Nintendo. Gameplay-wise, oh dear. I suppose we should be pleased that they tried to manage to cram a fair few moves onto the single-button joystick that so cripples home computer games. It's valiant in a way, however there's little in the way of character-specific moves, and punching and kicking is just as effective at causing damage to an opponent as the stamina-sapping button bashing involved with performing backbreakers and body slams. Plus, the collision detection is ropey, so you keep having to reset your position to punch and kick them in the groin. You can take the fight to the outside to get the German, French and English fans really excited by the sweat dripping into their mouths. But there's not a lot in the way of foreign objects outside the ring to rearrange your opponent's physigs with, so what's the point? The small amount of opponents, essentially 4 teams, gets a bit boring after a while, and then there's the 2-player mode, which only allows the second player to control the Nasty Boys, which is brilliant if you were a Nasty Boys fan, but you weren't because no one was. It's a decent challenge at least, But half of that challenge is finding the will to carry on playing a repetitive, shallow, unresponsive wrestling game effort. CU Amiga gave it a 74% in their February 1993 edition. They said, as wrestling games go, this is about the best on the Amiga. Then again, that's not saying much. It's definitely one for the kids. Amiga Action gave it a 59% in their February 1993 issue. They said the game as a whole just doesn't come off, and I can't see anyone but the most die-hard wrestling fan playing it for more than a couple of hours at the very most. Commodore Force reviewed the Commodore 64 version in their Christmas 93 edition, and they gave it a 54%. They said even though the game is cosmetically sound, it won't stop it falling into beat-em-up obscurity. So yes, if this is what Europe has to offer in the 90s, it's not really surprising that the referendum result went the way it did. This game is definitely one to avoid. And with that rounded up, we take our leave of WWE European Rampage. What a load of crap. Anyway, like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.